It's remarkable that today it's taken totally for granted, and it's a foregone conclusion that people tweet along with broadcast. What's really interesting is that this kind of virtual roar of the crowd is happening during the broadcast window in most cases. Twitter's chief media scientist, Deb Roy, came up with a metaphor for this phenomenon of the roar of the crowd on Twitter and on mobile, which he calls the social soundtrack. So this is the germ of what inspired the name Amplify, Twitter Amplify, is we basically asked ourselves, how can we make that soundtrack a little bit louder? And here's what it looks like in action. This was one of the most talked about moments of last year's NBA season. So there was a sustained roar of the crowd over this particular play. Jack Dorsey, one of the co-founders of Twitter, describes a tweet as a caption to a much larger context. And we wanted to actually bring that context in the tweet in real time, and here's what it looks like.
Wade from behind takes it away. Chalmers, Hall, James!
The announcer is half the fun. And the idea here is that the NBA, the rights holder, is obviously providing the broadcast through their broadcast partner, and that's the first screen. And you can see here the social soundtrack of the folks watching and tweeting about it during the broadcast window, sharing this conversation with other people who are tweeting about it, and on, et cetera. Now, what the idea for Amplify is, and this kind of idea of real-time video, is that at the same time, complementary to this, we can actually target a clip from the game in real time, right after the dunk or the block, out to someone who may have forgotten to tune in. And similarly, we can feed that clip straight into the existing conversation at the moment when it's peaking, during that broadcast window like you saw at the beginning. And then here, obviously, is kind of a visual representation of what we mean by Amplify, this virtuous cycle created by feeding this existing conversation with real-time clips. Amplify's main use cases come out of sports, and that we originally thought of as instant replays, but it's not the only one. And it actually started with inspiration from the East Coast earthquake from a few years ago. So here's a visualization of what it looked like for tweets to travel around the eastern seaboard when the East Coast earthquake happened. These graphs here, actually, those aren't seismic readings, they look like it, but those are actually the y-axis as tweets. So you can see the tweets traveling, anticipating the shockwave coming through. So we started really nerding out on earthquakes in Twitter, and we found this particular account in Chile that was created by a 15-year-old who hooked a seismograph up directly to a Twitter account. So we're like, wow, okay, tweeting objects, this is pretty cool. What else can we find? We then discovered this account, which is a pollution meter on top of the US Embassy in Beijing. One of the only accounts technically in China that actually isn't blocked. This pollution meter actually tweets out air pollution levels automatically in Beijing on a regular basis. A couple of years ago, there was a minor diplomatic dust-up when this device couldn't actually process the level of pollution in the air on a certain day, and it actually revealed an Easter egg in however this thing was programmed, and it just tweeted out crazy bad. Sometimes the tweeting objects have personalities. So we tried to think of how do we get this tweeting object into the world of brands, and here's what we came up with our partners again at the NBA. Right at the moment when the dunk happens, the backboard itself has a Twitter account and tweets out a picture of itself getting dunked on. And then a lot of things started happening that we didn't anticipate at all. We started having partners come to us with ideas for using this idea of two-screen video that went way beyond instant replays. You can start to see some of the brand integrations here. This is Duracell sponsoring a live weather map by the Weather Channel that they tweeted out to people in cities about to get hit by storms. Obviously, from a brand integration point of view, really creative, and news you can use, like go buy batteries because you're going to be out of power soon. So imagine that level of artfulness and that level of care and that level of imagination applied to anything you can see on TV. And imagine if the control room for all the TVs, live or taped, et cetera, were constantly pumping out second screen content. It's really just the beginning. And the best part about it is that the storytelling on TV already, as this magazine said a year ago, is in its platinum age. And at the exact same time, smartphones are making TV even better than it is. And we don't, at Twitter, think of ourselves as rivalrous to TV, and we think of our position with respect to TV to be very modest, basically just a way to connect the audience with the creators on the screen. We tapped into something unknowingly that was this hunger for this ability to tell stories across two screens.